Hey guys, it's Drew again. It's been a little bit since I've made a video, so I figured, why not make one? Let's do story time. I told this story a long time ago when I was first on any YouTube channel. I went on Jake, aka Legends Never Die, formerly known as a Ticket Leprechaun, aka a real good friend of mine. And I was on his channel, I was up at his house, and we were talking about, shocker, stories of different items in our collections or cards and why they had significant meaning, even if they didn't have any sort of any kind of extra value, although some of them surely did. And I talked about this specific card and the story behind it, but I know a lot of you guys may not have seen it or it's been a while, and I figured I'd tell the story again because it's such a great one. It's definitely a card that while the card itself is specifically a great card, it's one in my collection that I just love, and it's one of those that when people see it, they're like, what happened to this thing? And I'll tell the story, so I'm going to tell it to you. My wife has always been very supportive of my collecting. I've heard a lot of comments from you guys about how you have wives or girlfriends, significant others that are very supportive as well. They may not understand it, but my wife, for a long time, what she would do is, as we were coming up towards either my birthday or Christmas, she would say, was there a card that she could try to get for me? And I understood our budget and price range and the card values and stuff. So I would write down very specific, a 1955 tops, you know, whatever, and then the card number, and then I would put a price range of what I felt she should probably pay for it. Well, two things. First of all, I search like a lot of guys for super bargains, so I was looking at what I would pay for it. I wouldn't pay more than that, and also my condition desires are much lower than a lot of people. I usually collect what the collector's grade, but Nancy would always, first of all, she's like, well, if I'm going to buy something, first, it's going to be really nice, nicer than what you would do. And second, she took whatever number I had and she said she would double it. And she said that's what her budget ended up being. So I've got some great cards in my collection thanks to her. And we're going to talk about one of them today. Because she did online buying, a lot of times what she would do is she would try to buy graded cards. And I am not a graded card collector. I'm not a graded card fan. I'm not going to get into the whole debate right now. I just, I've got my reasons, and that's the way it's going to be at this point. But when cards would come and she would give them to me, for the most part, I would break them out of the case and release them back into the wild. But I have a couple of graded cards very specifically, and the card I'm going to share about today is one of those. So she had ordered a card for me at Christmas time, and we live kind of in a rural area, and so when the mail would come, a lot of times when there was packages, just like a lot of people, mailman would put it on the porch. And we don't have any issues with like pirate theft or porch pirates or anything, that kind of stuff. But what happened was she'd been looking, she'd been tracking different items coming, different packages coming, and she noticed that this specific item that she had ordered for me was supposed to be delivered. So she sent my daughter outside and said, hey, can you go get the mail? She went outside and there was no mail. And they looked around to kind of see, and it wasn't there. And so she gets on the phone and she gets in touch with the post office. And she's actually on the phone with our local post office saying, hey, this thing said it's delivered. I need to make sure I have it. Here's this thing. So they're looking around. And my daughter, who at the time was probably about 11 or 12 years old, she looks out the back window and she sees our dog, Beagle, named Rascal, running through the yard. And she says, hey, Rascal's got something in his mouth. And my wife looks back, and sure enough, she can see what's left of Manila. And they run out there and they grab it and they come back inside, and there is this, the Manila envelope was basically gone. The bubble wrap around the card was shredded, and it was all over our backyard. And my wife's heart just sank. I mean, you think about this. It had been delivered, and our dog got the thing. And they opened it up and found that the case that the card is in is completely trashed. I'm going to show you the card right now, and then tell you a little bit more. So the card itself is a 1952 Bowman Campanella It's graded a 3 by Beckett, but the case is absolutely toasted. And I can show you this thing absolutely destroyed. Dog got to it. You can still see teeth marks in it, cracked off the corner. And my wife was just, oh my gosh, you know, I mean, we don't have tons of budget for stuff like this. It's a beautiful example. I mean, look at the card itself. Ignore the case. You see how well centered it is. The color is really nice. Nicer than the typical card in my collection, and a beautiful card. She kind of is in panic mode, and she calls a friend of mine who's a collector, Chris. If you ever watch these videos, Chris, you know the story. So, and she's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Now he lives a good ways away, so you know, she's talking to him, and he says, well, how is the card? Is the card damaged? Is the card messed up? And the more she looked at it, the more she realized, while the case is absolutely destroyed, the card is not. There's not one dent. The case itself is down in the corners, but the card has no cuts in it. It's not bent or creased, and it is in still the same shape as when it was originally slabbed. And so he says, if I were you, I would just keep it in the case and give it to him, and then let him decide. So she was nervous, and kind of other people sort of knew the story. I could sense an anticipation as we came up towards Christmas Day that there was something going on. And sure enough, Christmas morning, I open it up, and she says, before you open it, and she tells me this little quick story. And it's incredible that the case is destroyed, but the card itself is not. And I thought, there is no way I'm breaking this out, because the case itself just tells a story, and I love it. So yeah, there's my story of my 53 Campy, and one of the only graded cards in my entire collection. So yeah, I had people say that I should write to Beckett, and you know, they could do an ad about how even a dog can't get through their case. It's so well protected. So if any of you guys have ever busted out cases, you know that Beckett typically is the hardest, and so I'm kind of glad this wasn't PSA, because the card probably would have been destroyed. Anyway, I appreciate your time, guys. Yeah, there's my story. I appreciate you listening. Let me know below. You got anything in your collection, a crazy story or like this? I don't know about a dog doing it, but yeah, if you ever had a dog do it, I would love to hear that story. So anyway, I appreciate the time, guys. You guys be good.